Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to the Starcraft 2 Own It Shack. It is David here bringing you Master League Quest episode 29. And as you can see from the little loading screen there, it's going to be another Terran versus Zerg, and this time it's going to be on the map Shattered Temple. A very interesting map for this matchup because, well, I don't know, I just find the Mutalisk harassment on this map to be pretty strong. But anyway, before I get into this, I'm going to just let you know right now, I'm going to be doing that same strategy that I picked out for my last FPVOD. However, this game, my Zerg opponent, I feel, deals with it a lot better. So this should be a little bit more revealing as to how this strategy actually works and transitions into the late game. If you guys watched Master League Quest episode 28, you will notice, and if you haven't, spoiler alert, that my first push just trashed the guy. Normally, I don't think that's going to happen with mech. I feel like you should do some damage, but definitely not kill him with it. I think if they go Broodlords fast enough, you definitely need to turn around. So, anyway, for this particular game, as I said, going to be going for those early double factory Hellions into some Thors to protect against Mutalisks. And yeah, that's going to be my strat. Now, I've been playing quite a few ladder games, and just during the downtime I'd like to just explain this. And the reason you're only seeing my Terran versus Zergs right now is because at the moment my Terran versus Terran it's okay, but the build I'm using is still very rusty. It's still not quite refined like I have gotten this this build to be. And that's mainly because I just don't have as many Terran practice partners. Most of my practice partners are Zerg. And similarly with Protoss, I don't really have a solid build. I mean, I have all my mech stuff, but the fact of the matter is that stuff is really not working that well anymore. So, I hate to say it, but yes, I have been building Marauders recently, as much as I hate that unit to absolute death. Unfortunately, in Terran vs. Protoss, you just need them. There's no real alternative at this point that's completely viable. Sure, you might have heard the state of the game stuff about mech, but I mean, I'm obviously no expert at Starcraft, but there are Terran Grandmasters who do go for mech, such as Avalo, who I've mentioned quite a few times in my videos, and even he says it's not viable, and he's played more mech games than probably anyone except Goody. So that's kind of my thoughts on mech. It's great to have. I'll use it for some maps for sure. Like, for instance, this map mech is pretty good, but others, it's just horrible. And these are maps such as, you know, what's that one called? Tal'Dorei Malter. It's just terrible there. It's also pretty grim on any open map, so things like Metalopolis I really hate it on because they just counterattack your third every time you try and push them since there's two alleyways. I've never really won games with mech there. And it's pretty good on Xel'Naga, I'll give it that. But the problem with Xel'Naga is that a really good Protoss player will see you going mech, and they'll simply go 3-gate expand and just sentry contain you forever. And sure, you might think that you can push down because you have siege tanks, but the fact is that if you try, they'll just force field you off while you're pushing down and kill about half your army. You can get stuck up there for 15 minutes. It's happened to me. It's just wild. So don't worry, I'll still be doing some mech games, but probably not on the ladder. I'll save those for my customs for sure. So what that means is that I'm having to learn all these builds involving Marines and Marauders that I haven't used for months. So that's why you can expect to see some more rusty play than you might otherwise expect from me. And, you know, as long as it works, I guess I'll do it. Definitely had some trouble doing the stutter step micro because of, well, you just simply don't stutter step siege tanks or Thors. And yeah, so it's going to be a tough uphill battle for me to learn bio and TVP, but if I want to get to Master League, it's simply what I have to do now. So, and this is a Master League quest, so that's what's going to go down. Anyway, so this is a very standard game so far, as you can see. I've done all the build components correctly thus far. And just in case you're wondering what this build is, I will post a description, a detailed description of the build in the description of this video. So you can check out the build order there. I've also posted in the last video I did. I don't follow them to the T here because obviously you get distracted when you're playing. Things don't always go as planned, but I do try and follow the build as, you know, as religiously as possible. The Armoury goes up at the right time. Second factory. As you can see, the Barracks was a little out of position there, so that tech lab's going to be a tiny bit late. Also, I think on this map especially, it's really important to wall off. I mean, you're natural, of course. Walling off your natural on this map just makes total sense to prevent counterattacks when you do that push. Now, I've got my Hellions on the way, and as you can see, I still don't have that third base, but on Shattered Temple you have sort of a choice with mech where you want to take your third. You can take it at the gold base, or you can take it at that bottom right semi-island base, but unfortunately that's not a gold base, so I do recommend taking the gold base on this map as your third. However, if you're going to do that, you need to destroy those rocks by your natural in advance. You can take your fourth down at that bottom right. I make the mistake of not doing that this game, and it can be extremely annoying to have to kill those rocks in the late game. Committing units over there when you need them at the front lines is just very risky, and if you do it early, it just mitigates that risk. So I don't see the real reason why, you shouldn't take advantage of that when you can, when you're passive. So the third command center is going down at the moment, which is great, and I've got my tech lab factory up. And unfortunately, just as I was putting down those refineries, his Zerglings do come in and do some damage. I feel like we traded pretty evenly there. He killed off probably 3 or 4 Hellions. I killed a bunch of Zerglings. So I guess everyone's happy. Well, I guess he's not happy, but those Zerglings could have been drones. And as you can see, I'm putting the engineering bay down a little bit early. I played a game before this one where the guy caught me with like 9-minute Mutalisks, and that was painful. So I've been trying to remember to get early Thors and early turrets from now on, just so that, you don't get owned by that Mutalisk switch. What an embarrassing game. And by the way, I actually feel the need to elaborate on this right now because of how upset I was with that game. This freaking guy, so he has me pretty much beat. First, he's the kind of guy that doesn't give you a GLHF at the start. I'm sure you've all faced them. You might even be one yourself, and that's fine. I don't expect everyone to give a GLHF, but if you don't do that, seriously, don't go ahead and bad manner me when you're winning, like giving me offensive GGs and such. It just doesn't make any sense. I said absolutely nothing except GLHF and GG at the end of that game when I lost, and the guy still continued to flame me after I had already left the game. So yeah, that's just interesting stuff. Seriously, the quality of people on this server sometimes is a little disappointing, but it's what we have to deal with in North America. And I'm sure you all know by now, I'm a pretty well-mannered guy on here, so I do endorse being polite and respectful to your opponents. And so now that I've gotten that off my chest, let's continue with the game. So one problem with going for this build, this double factory Hellion build on this map is, as you can see, he just puts a couple spines up near his choke, and you can't really harass his third if he takes it up at the top left. And I'm assuming he's already taken it at this point. There's no reason to assume he wouldn't. I mean, he's totally safe. I can't get up there. The only thing I can really do with the Hellions is deny creep spread and deny the gold base from being taken while I take my own. So that's what I'm up against right now. And you might have just noticed I queued up a turret over at that gold base, and that's for the simple reason that these roaches, as you can see, a lot of Zergs, when they see mech, this has happened to me plenty of times, is they'll go for like full-on roach tech. They'll upgrade their roaches, they'll get burrow and speed, and burrow movement, tunneling claws that is, and what they do is they just burrow their roaches and unburrow right under your mech army. And if you didn't put up turrets, like I oftentimes forget to, then you'll just lose the game immediately because your tanks just splash each other, everything dies. So putting up turrets in advance where your army is going to be positioned is a great idea, I feel, on this, or on any map when you're going for this strategy. And I should be putting up another one as well. Yeah, there's another turret. I'll have the tank siege there just for extra safety. And yeah, the second, or rather the third, oh my goodness, the fourth and fifth factories is what I mean to say, are going up a tad bit late there. Those should have been going up about 1 or 2 minutes earlier. And as you can see, I did forget to take out those rocks, so that's going to be annoying. And here's another really nerve-wracking part of mech. If you don't have vision in front of your army, then when you're trying to take that base, attacking the rocks can be risky, because if they run their entire army at you when you're doing that, you will simply die, because your siege tanks won't be able to kill the roaches before they get there. So it's risky. That's why I've taken the Zelnaga Tower as I'm doing this, because seriously, getting caught like that is the worst feeling ever. I think the only thing that really trumps that in terms of disappointing losses would be, in fact, the Mutalist switch early that I mentioned, without Thors or turrets. That's pretty bad. So I do throw down a couple scans here. As you can see, my minerals do stack up quite a bit. This is typical when you're going mech. And I believe, yes, on my last video it was suggested that at this point I have all these excess minerals, might as well throw down tons of turrets. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just throwing down plenty of turrets around my natural and main, just in case he does switch to Mutalisks. I won't have to commit too many Thors up there. And that's just pretty much, I think it's a solid play. So thank you very much for that tip, by the way. Again, any tips you leave me, I read every single comment I get, even if I don't respond to them all, though I do try. And I take them all to heart, so thank you very much. Another suggestion I got was throwing up a second armory for this build, and I have to admit, I do like that. What this lets you do is it lets you not only upgrade your mech, weapons, and armor faster, it also allows you to get your Viking weapons and plating quite a bit faster when you're eventually get those Vikings to deal with Broodlords. It's pretty important, I'd say. I think it's something everyone should do, because upgrades are just so powerful. Also, I'm sending a Hellion out there right now to just go check for any possible hidden expansions. His Zerglings do catch it, unfortunately, so that's, that's unfortunate. More turrets going down as my minerals continue to stack. I'm really loving the static defense. You just feel a lot better about yourself when you do this, because you know that you don't have to, you don't have to leave Thors behind. Well, not as many at least. So I see the Greater Spire and throw down 3 Starports. This is very typical. That Greater Spire, I spotted it a tiny bit late, I feel. So, I don't know. If I just spotted that maybe 30 to 45 seconds earlier, I could have pushed and maybe done some damage with this. But as it stands, my mech army is slow, so I don't feel like I'm going to get to his base before, the Broodlords are finished. His Infestors come out to play. This army is no match for my mech. Also, you'll notice I targeted my siege tanks on his Infestors during that engagement. This is something everyone should be doing. Infestors and Banelings are the most important things I feel that your siege tanks need to hit, unless he's going in a ton of roaches. Because if you kill those Infestors, he's not going to be able to fungal your Vikings. And we all know that the Vikings are going to be needed here. I mean, he's teching a Broodlord, so you're going to need it. So I think that's pretty important. Also, don't get caught without Hellions, because this kind of thing can just devastate you. When you lose a mech army, I found that the best thing to do is just mass Hellions immediately afterwards, because if you do that, you will be able to stop pretty much anything, unless he goes for a Mutalisk heavy play. But that's so expensive that he usually is just going to punch out a bunch of Zerglings or Roaches. I do spot his next base. The Starports are up, and I decided to be a little greedy there. I actually made reactors on them instead of immediately pumping through Vikings. So a little bit risky, but I figured, they should be out in time. This probably, it should work out all right. Also get all of my turrets up at that base. And they're the Broodlords, and he's got a ton. So I'll unsiege immediately. You want to unsiege before his ground army's in sight, or they'll just run over you. See, if I had just unsieged there, I would lose this game immediately. But as it stands, I can take cover, and now that my Vikings are out, I should be somewhat safe from this. Now, another thing you're going to want to do is split your Vikings, as you can see right here. Zerg players have become very accustomed to just fungling a huge clump of Vikings and winning the game. Do not lose this way. I'm telling you, it's one of those things that you're just going to hate yourself for. You've already survived 20 minutes against this Zerg player. You do not want to get all your Vikings fungled, so spread them out like that. Make sure that he can't, just completely decimate them with one fungal. And he's forced to use Neural Parasite on them. And you know what? That's fine. If he's not fungling them, those Vikings should, come back to serve me eventually. As you can see, that one loses its Neural. And now that he's wasted all his energy neuraling, he won't be able to fungal these Vikings like he would have been able to otherwise. So my reinforcing Vikings clean up the army. But all is not okay right now. As you can see, my minerals are extremely high, but I'm very gas starved. So I need to secure way more gas geysers if I'm going to have a hope of coming into this game. Because right now, I actually do feel somewhat behind. I know he's already taken his entire side of the map. I don't have my ghosts out yet, although I did build my Ghost Academy. Something that I really should have been doing months ago, but refused to because of... Well, I personally, I'm sure some of you might argue this point, but I personally find ghosts rather hard to use in terms of the micro. They just, I don't know, I don't like microing small units. It's kind of why I go for mech. So he sends in all those Zerglings, pretty much a waste of units, doesn't really kill anything. You're going to want to repair all this as well, as you can see. I do send my SCVs over there. Don't really need them mining anyway since I have so many minerals. And scanning at this point, I think, is pretty important because you want to make sure he's not going for Ultralisks. And seeing all those Corruptors right there pretty much confirms that for me. If he's going for Ultralisks, I might as well just GG right now because I have so much wasted supply in Vikings. I'd have to just, you know, just land them all at an expansion. So I'm also going to be going for a nice little Blue Flame Hellion drop. Probably, you know, something I should have done a little bit earlier in this game. But, you know, whatever. You can't remember to do everything. It's pretty tough. So I also have a bunch of idle SCVs. I will be doing nothing with them. That's pretty bad. They're all just sitting right there. There I go. So get that saturated with SCVs. And as always, make a huge ring of turrets around each base and their refineries. Another thing I've done here is I've gotten my high-sec auto-tracking and building armor upgrades. The Ghost Academy is currently researching the Mobius reactor for my ghosts. And I did put up a bunch of extra barracks in order to, like, quadruple pump ghosts. Pretty much need it when he's going Infestor Broodlord, as you can see. And those Infestors, man, they have full energy. That is dangerous. Also, the fact that I see all those Corruptors means that I'm going to want to stop Siege Tank production for now and switch into Heavy Thor. Because the Thor will really help the air battle by dealing splash damage to those Corruptors. If he has all these Corruptors, Broodlords, and Infestors, he's not going to really have anything except Zerglings on the ground, so, you know, a couple Siege Tanks and Hellions should be enough to deal with that. To be honest, right here, I feel like that's just too many Siege Tanks. Ghosts are now out as well. Got a bunch of SCVs there to repair. And, yeah, I'm working on those rocks with my Marines. And I'm adding another tech lab to my racks. And I'll actually add, is that a 5th barracks? I believe it is. Now, this is the point where I have enough minerals that I can just throw down a bunch of orbitals to help me get super saturated with mules at all my bases. Also need to saturate my refineries here because gas is so important when you're going for mech. And I just constantly scan to see his composition there. And with Ghost, Vikings, Thors, Siege Tanks, this is a really, really powerful combination of units, I think. Can really deal pretty well with what he's got. Now the Hellions drop just in time to see probably, looks like that's about 8 or 9 spine crawlers going down. And I'll just run him to this base instead. Sadly, he mass spine crawlers here. Very smart by my Zerg opponent. You definitely want to be doing stuff like this against mech. And yeah, my Blue Flame Hellion drop that I sent over there like 5 minutes ago and finally remembered, it does not end up doing all that much damage. I'll now be taking the base that should have been my 4th base, and as you can see here, more annoying things you're going to want to watch out for when you're taking bases against Zerg is the fact that sometimes Zerg players will just throw a bunch of overlords there. And you got to clean up the creep before you land. Now, here's another important thing I decided to do. Basically, I wanted to completely see any army movement that this guy had, because the fact is, with mech, you need to know where he is before you move out, or you can get flanked, surrounded, etc. Caught unsieged. It's all just bad stuff. So that's what I'll be doing right now. I'll also bring my medevac down. And with sensor towers and turrets out there, I also won't get caught by burrowed roaches, like I mentioned. So I now feel safe to move out. Got all my ghosts. For mech army hotkeys, see my hotkey video. I am using that hotkey setup here. And yeah, it's just been working really well for me. I've got, you know, almost too many Vikings here. this is really risky because, like I said, those infestors, if they get off a nice fungal, and you clump those, you can lose like 30 supply worth of Vikings instantly. My bank is also sufficient at this point that I can, in fact, do a nice mass factory right there. And finally land that command center. That was quite annoying. And I'll be saturating those geysers as well. Making that a planetary. In hindsight, that might not have been completely necessary, but, you know, what do you do? So he's just going really heavy brutes, and I decided to do something kind of greedy. I'm going to try and cloak my ghosts and go in there and EMP some of his infestors. This was definitely a bad idea. If he just threw a fungal on those ghosts right now, and they're clumped, they'd all die, and I would lose the game. I'll also try and snipe some of those broodlords. Man, that feels good. And try and snipe the Overseer as well, just so he can't see those. Unfortunately, 3 of the ghosts are killed, I believe, and 3 survive. Now, you'll also, because those ghosts have no energy, I believe, yeah, I load them up into my medevac so that they don't get killed during the battle. I think it's a really important thing. Also, you'll notice I split the Vikings right off the bat, bring some others around the side, as you can see, and target those siege tanks. Please tell me I target the siege tanks on the infestors. Yep, I do in fact do that. And the infestors just completely melt. And at this point, I feel very ahead. The ghosts get loaded up into the medevac there, and the Vikings can finish off them. Now, unfortunately, as I said, if you don't make a huge round of Hellions after a nice battle like this, you're just going to get rolled by mass Zerglings. And that's exactly what you're about to see here. Unfortunately, he realized this weakness and was able to, in fact, punish me for trying to reinforce with Thors and siege tanks. They just come out too slowly. And there goes the big, huge red splot. You want to cloak those ghosts. There's absolutely no reason to lose ghosts to Zerglings. And at this point, I feel, you know what? Just let the Thors die and, you know, just freaking hope I can get this Hellions out in time. There's some utilitarian philosophy going out right now. Try and make as many things survive. I'll load up that ghost, although that was a little late. I did lose 2 ghosts there unnecessarily. And yeah, with Thors on the ramp, I'm pretty much safe from the Zerglings. Unfortunately, I'm a little slow on one of my liftoffs there, and he kills one of my excess orbitals. But yeah, so definitely not the most, I'd say, proud moment I have in this game. But with the Hellions coming out, man, like +3 Hellions just demolish Zerglings. The problem is, now that I'm weak to roaches, so he can just mass a bunch of roaches and send those across the map. And I'm not sure if that is exactly what he's going to do, but it's something you have to be mindful of. So after you've got your Thors and Hellions, which is important because it'll stop the Zerglings or mutas, you got to make the siege tanks, because as you can see right there, a crap ton of roaches are coming, and I'm forced to fall back yet again. I try and throw a defensive nuke down, but unfortunately that didn't exactly pan out the way I hoped. It was just it was too far ahead of the army, so didn't really do much. Hellions are quite good against roaches when they don't get fungled and when you can kite somewhat, but against this many roaches, I mean, obviously Hellions never beat roaches 1 for 1. So the roaches do in fact kill most of my Hellions, and I'm forced to sort of retreat up my ramp and just hope that I can get enough siege tanks out. My money's even quite low at this point. But with ghosts, the spellcasters are just very cost efficient, and I start sniping away at those roaches, trying to kill as many as possible before they come up the ramp. But now that my ghosts are uncloaked, it would be wise to not lose them all. No! That was bad. Definitely got to put those in the medevac. There we go. And I'll make another nuke. He's just continuing to rally roaches across the map. But don't forget, I have about 6 factories down there, so I'll be able to make a nice little siege line over here and defend against the roaches. Thankfully, my SimCity, just by pure luck, helped me out down at the battle at the gold base, and I was able to completely rout these forces. But the main was a different story. I still had some Vikings left over, so I decided to bring those back into the fight, try and rally the troops, and now I've somewhat stabilized. Just need to kill that last roach and also make a bunch of, you know, a bunch of ghosts. Unfortunately, I do not believe I was dropping mules during this entire engagement, and as such, my minerals became quite low during this whole, little brouhaha. So, unfortunately, I could have been making much more units during this, but I was not able to. And, well, I'm sure you guys would all understand that having units is, in general, considered to be a pretty good thing in a game of StarCraft 2. Now, at some point here, I will be adding a bunch of Ghost Academies. I'm not really sure if I've done that yet, but it's definitely, what I'm going to want to do, because my plan here was to eventually start doing some nuke harassment. In the late game against Zerg, it's very, very effective, because a lot of the times they won't have spore crawlers all across the map. And, that's a good thing. It means that you can nuke bases and kill a ton of drones, so it's definitely a good idea. There goes one Ghost Academy. So I have 2 right now. And just a little note, you should probably consider hotkeying all your Ghost Academies. This is what Avelo does when he plays Ghost Mech. He hotkeys them all to 8, but I keep my command centers on 8, so I use 0. Also, there's no reason to be building supply depots at this point. You have so much energy that you might as well just drop supply. This actually is much better than mules in the long run, because calling down a supply is a gain of 100 minerals, whereas mules means you just mine 300 minerals faster than you would have otherwise. But if you have dropped, 20 supply depots, that's an extra 2,000 minerals that do not come from the mineral patches, so you'll be able to mine your bases longer if you do that. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you should play like this in the early game, you'll just die, but it is something you should consider for late game scenarios like this when you lose depots. So now I have a nice amount of ghosts. I'm using the mules to simply repair. Don't really need to call those down at the moment. I've taken my entire side of the map. He's taken his entire side of the map. This is a split map scenario, and I'm going to be starting my nuke harassment right now. I'll also be making additional nukes at my Ghost Academies. Excuse me. Now, what you're going to want to do is just nuke in as many places as you can at once. Unfortunately, in this game, I made the mistake of not putting hold fire on my ghosts. You might not be familiar with this command. What that does is it means that your ghosts will not attack anything that they're nearby. And what this does is it basically means that when your ghosts are trying to nuke, your opponent's not going to be alerted to where the ghost is by him accidentally attacking some structure. Now, anyway, hold that thought. This is an important engagement. I need to EMP the infestors as best as I can, and I get some fabulous EMPs off there. It means that my Vikings will not get fungled, and with the Thor support, I am able to kill all the corruptors first, and then switch my focus over to the Broodlords. Now I'll continue building nukes here. If you nuke a hatchery like 3 times, I think it dies, which is pretty awesome. Also, at this engagement, I massed Hellions after the engagement because I knew from experience that that's exactly what he was going to try to do again to win. He's just going to mass Zerglings, and you can see there they are. So the siege tanks, everything moves back. I've already got Hellions out, and through this choke point, just going to completely demolish that. Man, that was disgusting. Wow. So more drones come over here. I'm going to send him back to recover his energy a bit. And meanwhile, this ghost he was just attacking, now he knows where the ghost is. That's just terrible. You have to press hold fire on your ghosts. Unfortunately, he was so frazzled that I don't think he even noticed. But yeah, with more nukes building, I will be able to, try and finish off those 2 mining bases that he has. I'm assuming that he's mined out his gold in his top left by this point. Also, I'll keep scanning just to make sure that I'm not going to get caught by Ultralisks. That's my main fear right now. So yeah. So, almost have a nuke ready, and at that point I will be... Oh, look at that, 20 kills in that ghost. Pretty nice. This guy's also recovered some of his energy, so I can nuke this base again and cloak him, obviously. And yeah, double nukes are pretty sick. Unfortunately, my army just went to a completely random spot at this point. The Thor's positioning there was unbelievably lucky, and I kill a bunch more drones plus his hatchery, so he's almost like all in at this point. He has to do significant damage with this force or he will die. And I'm maxed now, so I can send out my army. I've got a nice healthy mixture of units. I feel like I have way too many SCVs at the moment now because, I don't know, this army looks too small for maxed. I should definitely sack some SCVs. Don't need all those. So the ghosts lead the way just in case there's infestors. I will throw a nuke down there just in case he tries to reinforce. Don't even really need to siege the tanks. And yeah, that's pretty much enough. I've killed that base. Another nuke should finish this base off when that nuke finishes. And that's enough to make him go ahead and leave the game. So a really exciting game, I felt like. Probably sloppy play, obviously, but in the late game, you can't really expect much else. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. I definitely enjoyed playing it. You always feel good when you win a long game like that. But anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And please tune in again for another daily dose of ownage.